Alright guys, we made it through Module 1. You've completed the work. I've completed the grading, conceivably, and provided feedback, and you guys are ready to roll with Module 2. We're going to cover Module 2 over weeks 2 and 3 in the course. You'll see that the Pratt Last Associates database is due on January 20th, while the 3 reinforcements are due the following week on January 27th. The discussion forum is due by the 27th, and then the exam again will be on a Sunday. It's due on February 2nd. There will be a couple of videos. Again, there will be a video from someone who has actually gone step by step through the module, which I don't mind your having. The videos I provided are more or less, and I go over what I expect to see at the end of the module, and if there are any pitfalls that you potentially will fall into, that students generally do fall into, I will usually tell you about those. So for this module, of course, you have the Pratt Last Associates, and I'm going to show you how you start out with that. And then you have Garden Naturally, which is the Lab 1. Lab 2 is the Museum Gift Shop. And Lab 3 is Campaign Marketing. So these are exactly the same databases that you created in Module 1. And now you're going to work in Module 2, which is all about querying a database. So the word query just means to ask a question. And querying is a very powerful tool. If you go to the registrar's office and they need to look up something, anything, or if you go to WebAdvisor and you need to look up anything, once you put in your student ID and you tell WebAdvisor what it is you want to see, it performs a query. It uses your ID and it finds the information and it returns the information that you wanted based on who you are. So that's all a database does. You ask the right questions in the right way. If they're formed right, you will get the output. If you don't form them well, what you get back from the database may not be exactly what it is you wanted. So this module is all about how to form a query, and it talks some about just some basic queries that we use. How to create, and we're going to create them in Design View. If you remember in Module 1, we had the wizard create the query. With this one, I like the Design View better because it allows you to see what's going on in the background, and it gives you the option to really customize the query to give it what it is, to get out of it what it is you really want to know out of the data. Keep in mind, for these assignments, we're only using a few pieces of data. Like in the primary table, we might only have 15 to 18 or 20 pieces of data. In the real world, you've got tens of thousands of pieces of data. Just if you just think about Duke Energy, I wouldn't even begin to fathom the number of hundreds of thousands of data entries they have. The number of customers. Each customer has his or her own data record by a unique ID, a primary ID. So keep in mind that for this assignments, we're only using a few pieces of data. So you want to make sure you actually build the queries effectively and use them, and not go and scroll down through the database to try to figure out, oh, that real answer is this. Don't do that. Let the query, build the query so the query does the work for you. Because in the real world, when you go to work, you will not be able to scroll down through hundreds of pieces of data or thousands of pieces of data. You will have to let the query work for you. So Module 2 is all about building queries. You're going to use something called wildcards. Make sure that you pay attention to that. That begins on page AC 72. And I didn't say this in the first module, but I encourage you to read all of these modules away from the computer. I have found through my years of experience that students do better with retaining if they read away from the computer first, so they're not tempted to go through the steps, and then do the steps. And then if they're still unclear about some concept, reread. This works very well to help with understanding the concepts, and we saw a significant improvement in how students performed on exams as well. So you're going to use wildcards, and you probably have used them before, but an asterisk usually represents, well, it does represent multiple number of characters. Like if you were going to search a database for all the people who had the name that began RU, and you know my last name is Ruff, then you would do RU asterisk, and then it would represent Ruff, or it could represent Rumansky, or it could represent Rudolph, because it'll take the RU and then any number of characters represented by the asterisk. Now, for the question mark, it only represents a single character. So you would want to use it. Let's say you had a database that where you had some Ruffs and some Roffs. So ROFF versus RUFF. And you're a customer service person and you talk to someone and you're not quite sure based on the pronunciation if the name was Ruff or Ruff. So you can put in R question mark FF, and it'll pull up all the Ruffs and the Ruffs. And then you should be able to look by the first name or whatever else information that person might have given you, and then zero in on the customer or the data record. So you'll be using wildcards. Then you'll be creating something called a parameter query. And a parameter query is just one that gives you a lot of flexibility. It allows you to say, I want specifically this. Like I want specifically those people who live on Hebron. So you know, if you're in Henderson County, that could mean Hebron Street, it could mean Hebron Road, it could mean Hebron Drive. But it allows you to zero in on a particular thing, a particular part of the data. And you'll start working with that on page AC 75, and then you'll build it and then actually use it on AC 77. You'll also use comparison criteria, and those are operators that you normally would use, less than, greater than, equal to, or not equal to. So you'll use some of those. They're pretty straightforward. Don't overcomplicate it. Also, the or and the and feature, those are also compound criterion and operators that you can use to further define what it is you want the query to find. You might want to find everyone that has blue eyes and red hair, and you can do that using and. Or if you wanted to find everyone that has blue eyes and or red hair, then you're going to get a larger number of data, because you'll get all the blue-eyed people that don't just have red hair. They might have blonde hair or black hair or whatever, or gray hair, as is in my case. Well, could be my case. You're going to sort. You're going to learn how to omit duplicates. It is not necessary to have, if you do a query and you have duplicates, you don't need to see that. You just need to see the individual entries in your output. So it'll talk you through how to get rid of duplicates. Just follow the directions. It's pretty easy to do. You're going to have to choose some top values, and you will do that starting on page AC 88. And then you're going to join tables. And you'll join tables to build some really queries that actually look at data from your primary table. In Pratt Last, that will be your account table, and then line it up with the table, the account manager table, which is why we have the primary and the secondary keys in both of these tables. They have to have something in common for them to be able to talk to each other. And again, you want to create a report. You're going to export some data in this one. When you do the homework, make sure you look at the output sheet that I went through for Module 1. It tells you what I expect to see, what I expect you to upload, so that I can grade it. And I'm pretty... if you upload them early, I'll grade them early, and I'll provide very thorough feedback. Let me show you what actually happens. So for module 1, when you finish module 1, I'll show you, because listen, everything that I've asked you to do, I've done. I have worked through every page of this book, including the modules we're not doing. And I do that for 2 reasons. Every now and then there's a misprint in the book, and I will find those misprints, and I will make a note in the course so you know that there's a misprint in the book. The other thing is the software may have changed. If you have Access 365, Microsoft Access 365, the software might have changed and won't agree with the book. The book was printed in 2016, and even if you have a later printing, they print them all the time, so the latest print still might not catch the latest update in the software. So I walked through all of these. So in module 1, when I got finished, I had these 4 databases. So what I did was, and you'll want to do the same thing, I used the Control A to select all of them. Then I right click and I did copy. And then I opened module 2. I'm going to create a new folder called module 2 fake, so I can show you what I did. Alright, and I'm going to open module 2 fake, and then I'm going to paste those databases. And now these will be the starting databases for module 2. Now, when you do your homework and you finish module 1, and after you've gotten my feedback and made any corrections, then you would copy and paste them into your empty module 2 folder. And then when you start the Pratt Last, if we open it, you'll see it is where you left off in module 1, and then you will start creating the queries in module 2. So let me show you what they will look like. I'm going to get rid of this folder because it will just confuse me later. Okay, delete everywhere. Okay, and now so let's take a look at what you're going to see in module 2. So you see the Pratt Last Associates, Lab 1, Lab 2, Lab 3, and you're going to create this manager account query. It is part of the Pratt Last Associates database, and just make sure you follow the directions and upload that. You can see, if I widen this, you'll be able to see it's an Excel spreadsheet. So let's look at Pratt Last. Pratt Last, wow, it has a lot of objects now. So we have 2 tables. We have several queries. We have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, you have 16 queries. You have the same forms you had in module 1, and you have the account financial report you had in module 1, and you're going to create something called the manager account report this chapter in this module. You're also going to create this manager account query. That's where you're going to join the 2 tables to create a query. And you're going to do a parameter query. This is it. I'll show you how it works. Let me look at the account table first, and so I can get a city. All right, so I'm just going to pick the city Wells. You see right here there's some city names. I'm just going to pick the city Wells. All right, so let me show you what the parameter query does. It asks you, enter a city, and I'll give you all the data that has that city name. We're going to just use Wells, and it's going to return that data. I'm going to close it. Let's go back to the account table. I'll show you that again. Let's choose a different city. Let's choose Granger. And we're going to run that same query. And now it returns those 3 pieces of data. Let me show you what happens if you make a mistake. let's just say I said Granger, but I didn't spell it right. It reports no data. So it's not rocket science, but make sure you follow the directions pretty carefully. You're going to do something called a crosstab. It's where you it has you go through a wizard, and we'll use the wizard now, but when we get more sophisticated, you'll be building these on your own. This one just takes a look at the data down the x-axis and across the y, and we'll talk through that and walk through that pretty carefully. And okay, that's Pratt Last. And here's the query, the output, the Excel. What it has you is export. It has you export the query to an Excel spreadsheet and save it as an export spreadsheet. In Lab 1, you're gonna again have the original objects that you had in Lab 1, but you're gonna have several queries. I think there are a total of 11 queries in this one that you will be adding to this database. It also has, I believe it has a crosstab, and I think it also has a parameter query. Make sure you name them. If you look on page, let's take a look at that right quick. This is Lab 1, Garden Naturally. On page AC117, it tells you how to name the query. When you get through step 1, it tells you everything that you need to do, and it's at the very end it says save the query as Lab 2-1 step 1 query. Just like that. Make sure you follow those names. Don't get upset when you see 1 and then 10. This puts them in numerical order, and it doesn't look at the value of the, it looks at the label, so it doesn't look at the value. So if you had a 11 and 12, it'd be lined up right after 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then 2. So just make sure you follow them. If you look, it'll tell you how to name each one specifically. And it's also on that check sheet that I provided at the very top of the semester. Lab Museum 2, Lab 2 Museum Gift Shop. It works very much the same way. You have your original tables, your original item query. You're going to do something called an update query. Now these are action queries. So action queries make changes to tables. So action queries are delete queries, update tables. Those update queries, those are primarily what we'll be using. There's also something called a make table query, and it actually creates a table for you. There's a lot. We don't do the make table, but they do discuss it in your chapter pretty thoroughly. So make sure you read the chapter very well. And I'm looking to see what page they talk about the action query. Give me just a minute. They kind of snuck it in a place where they they've changed this book a little bit. Wildcard parameter query. They put it in they just talked about it. They didn't have you do it, which I think was sort of a mistake, but I guess they had to decide what they could leave out in to make sure we covered everything that the semester needs to cover. So let's see. I'm looking for, I know they discuss it here. That's joining two tables. Okay. Tells you how to use forms, how to perform calculations. You'll be doing all of that, how to change captions in the property sheet. You want to make sure you do all of those things carefully. You're going to do some calculations. You're going to do the crosstab query. Then you're going to use the split form. They'll walk you through doing that. Okay. And then Camshay Marketing, Lab 3. It'll look very similar to what you had in Lab 1, except it'll have, in Module 1, except it'll have all those queries. So you have the same two tables, the only form, the client financial report, and then you have all these queries. And you see they're giving you very specific names. Step A, B, C, D. You don't see E and F because they gave you different names for those. If you look at that on page AC 120, let's just look then at E. It tells you create a parameter query for the client table that will allow the user to enter a different city each time the query is run. So we named that one the client city query. And I put that on the report. Then F is create a crosstab query that groups the amount paid by city, the amount paid total by city and marketing analyst. And so we named that the city marketing analyst crosstab. And G is there and H is there. And I think that's it. Again, I will grade all, you upload them as you have been, and I will grade them and provide very thorough feedback before you proceed to Module 3 in week 4. Okay, I think that's it. Good luck. Bye.